And now we proceed with the third and final part of the presentation. Here we're going to be talking about the new APIs and capabilities added in Revit 2025, the latest release of Revit. As I mentioned before, we do have a lot of changes to the macro manager. We've added the new property module folder. We added the new interface iModel Maker. It allows users to create new module project by implementing this interface. And the new event macro updated is raised when the macro modules are updated. Here is how new UI for the Revit macro tools looks in Revit. And I would like to mention again that now we do not support document level macros, only the application level macros are supported. And Python and VB.NET macros are no longer supported as well. Only C# macros can be created. Analysis API additions. For MEP analytical networks. The new constructor allows users to traverse both sides of the specified analytical segment. So we've added the iterator that allows you to traverse both sides of the specified analytical segment. In comparison, the existing constructor only traverses one side of the analytical segment. And the network consists of a number of analytical segments. So this traversal can now go in both directions from the starting segment. We've added some new capabilities to the pressure loss calculation. Users now have access to duct pipe pressure loss characteristics. There is a new class, critical path collector, and the new class, critical path iterator. They provide the ability to see the calculated flow and pressure drop values of the network critical path. This functionality is new. It's not only the API. Now we have analytical segments that could be visible in graphical views. So one MEP element could have more than one analytical segment. For example, T connector has 3 of them. And these analytical segments support all the generic Revit frameworks. They are schedulable, they are taggable. You could see their properties when selected. And you could override their graphic appearance. There are 2 new categories, analytical duct segments and analytical pipe segments that are present in both design elements and fabrication parts. There are more analysis API additions and the new classes represent schedules that describe the usage of buildings, occupancy, power, lighting for use in energy analysis. This is new functionality. In the previous versions of Revit, it was possible to have only the operating day schedule, but this is not realistic for energy analysis because during different time of year, day schedules could be different based on the purpose of the building. So we've added the ability to create a year schedule, kind of representative 365-day operating schedule. And for each day of that schedule, you could assign a specific operating day schedule with indication of the occupancy during the day. Occupancy, power, or light. So there are new methods to create day schedules. There are new methods to create year schedules, and new properties of day schedule and year schedule. Schedule name can be assigned through the API as well. Since it is a new functionality, I want you to take a look how UI looks. That's how the representative year could be created, and different day schedules could be assigned to specific days of the year. And that helps to run energy analysis and produce gbXML data for creating energy usage reports and energy analysis reports. So this release, we've added this functionality not only in UI, but fully available in the public API as well. There is, in addition to Annotations API, we now exposed the class span direction symbol. It is not new functionality in Revit. It was available in UI before, but now we've added the access to it through the API. There are some additions to Array API. It is mostly based on the ability to create a parametric arrays in families with more flexible abilities. Arrays in families can now have 0 or 1 element as versus arrays in project, where they can minimum number of elements in array is 2. So the new methods allow you to get minimum size based on the document and number of members, including placeholders, and the valid number of members, again, takes document, as I mentioned before, as an argument and gives a different answer based on whether it's family document or a project document. This is similar for linear array and the radial array. For the radial array, there are new methods as well to get the minimum size, number of members, and valid number of members. This is just to illustrate what's now possible. It is possible to create parametric arrays in families that can flex to 2 in project and to 1 and 0 in families. There are some additions to MAP Fabrication API. The new methods provide support to check for bad connections between fabrication parts prior to reloading the configuration. So there is a new method, check connections for all fabrication parts, validate connections for all fabrication parts, post reviewable warnings for bad connections, and get updated straight from validate connections. Also, there is addition of method to direct shape element. For those of you who are familiar with direct shapes, these are just containers of geometry that used for import geometry data from different other applications, or could be created just programmatically. But even in previous versions of Revit, direct shape had abilities to have different representation for the three-dimensional views and a custom plan view representation as well. But the API to set shape for the plan view representation was missing, so it was added in this release of Revit 2025. There are also dimension API additions, new methods to create radial dimension, arc length dimension, and linear dimension. Again, this is not new functionality. It was available in UI, but unfortunately was not open in API. Now we improved this and added API support for creation of these dimensions. A lot of electrical API additions, again, as I mentioned before. We added functionality for high leg, delta, and single phase distribution systems. A user can now create and modify high leg delta distribution system and single phase load in electrical analytical distribution system and get the per phase current on each node. There are new classes, electrical per phase data, analytical power distributable node data, analytical transformer data, and new enums, electrical phase line, and electrical connected phases. All of them listed here for your reference. There are also new properties, and the namespace is Autodesk Revit DB Electrical. There is distribution system type high leg phase, analytical power source data, apparent power rating, analytical distribution node property data, connected phases, analytical equipment load data, phases number, and analytical equipment load data, power factor state. More properties added as well. Connected phases, phases number, power factor state for both area-based load type. And that's how it looks in UI. Again, just for single phase components within three-phase power distribution systems, added support for single phase analytical loads and distribution elements, and single phase components with three-phase power distribution systems, unbalanced three-phase current computations. Some parameters were also renamed to clearly identify apparent power properties. Energy analysis API additions, gbXML export options. We now provide support for legacy export of gbXML based on a conceptual energy analytical model from a conceptual mass model. These new methods get mass IDs, get mass zone IDs, gbXML export options, and new property is conceptual that allows users to specify these export options and create the gbXML output from energy analytical model. There are some IFC API additions. We introduced IFC hybrid import, and in this release, we added the ability to update elements, which allows users to update elements previously imported via hybrid IFC link operation, and also get IFC step ID to element ID map, basically correspondence to retrieve association between the original IFC step identifiers and the created or updated elements. Also, we introduced a new functionality and new API to specify the IFC category mapping. It allows users to control the way how Revit categories are mapped to IFC classes during IFC export. User can now create, retrieve, and modify IFC category mapping templates. There are new classes: IFC category template, export IFC category key, and export IFC category info. Also, there are new enums. Actually, one new enum, custom subcategory ID, which has the following values: none, interior wall, exterior wall, foundation wall, retaining wall, core shaft, and soffit. That's how the new UI looks. Basically, it's a detailed map between Revit category and IFC classes with plenty of options, and all of them are available both in UI and API. Import-export API additions. Now it is possible to import, link, and export files of step format. There is new class step import options, which represent the options for step formats. The new methods use the new class step import options, basically document import, document link, and document export, which allows to use these methods for the step files. Again, it's the same UI as for other formats. It just has yet another choice in the dropdown for step files format for both link and import of cut formats. PDF export API additions. PDF export was already available, but now we've added the ability to start PDF export in the background. It allows to use a separate Revit worker to create the PDF in the background, leaving the main Revit process free for others to work. Both events, file exporting and file exported, are triggered at the start and the end of the export job, respectively. The new method, set export in background, allows programmatically specify that we want to have this export to be executed in the background. Classes file exporting event arguments and file exported event arguments both have a new member, background operation. The value is true if a background process was requested for the background operation that raised the event. Again, this is new functionality, so there is new UI added as well. So for the PDF export options, there is a new checkbox, export and background, which which indicates that the requested export is going to be executed in the background. There is also a background PDF export progress panel that appears in the right lower corner of Revit window. There is an ability to cancel the background export from there, and it gives a progress of the export that users could see during the export being executed. Reinforcement API additions. Users now have the ability to create and modify rebar constraints to surfaces. The new enum rebar constraint status represents the status of the constraints. The new value for rebar constraint type enum to surface represents handle is constrained to surface. There are also new methods: create constraint to surface, get surface for constraint to surface, is valid surface to constraint handle to. And for the rebar constraint, we can ask is to surface, returns true if the rebar constraint type of the rebar constraint is to surface, false otherwise. More methods added: get rebar constraint handle, flip side for clear bar spacing, zero distance constraint, and is equal. There are also new methods in rebar constraints manager. Set preferred constraints to surface for handles, set preferred constraint, get automated constraint candidates for handle. All of them listed here for your reference. And that's how the new UI looks like. So the ability to constrain specific handles to surfaces, which adds the flexibility and prevents unexpected changes to the rebar model. Reinforcement API additions, rebar splice type, options, and rules. We added functionality for splicing the rebar. Users can now splice a rebar, remove the splice, keeping the bars separated, unify into one bar, modify the data related to splice, and modify the constraints on the spliced bars, seeing a splice chain. These new classes all in the namespace Autodesk Revit DB structure. So there are new classes: rebar splice type utils, rebar splice options, rebar splice rules, rebar splice by rules result, and rebar splice utils. Rebar splice geometry and the rebar splice itself. There are also new methods of the class rebar bar type: get lap length, set lap length, get auto-calculated lap lengths, set auto-calculated lap lengths, get stagger lengths, set stagger lengths, get auto-calculated stagger length, and set auto-calculated stagger length. New members of rebar and rebar constraint handle and rebar host data are also listed here for your reference. The new properties in rebar splice options, splice type ID, and splice position in rebar can have varying length bars, has variable length bars, and in rebar shape driven accessor, and in rebar constraint handle. Also new enums: rebar splice position, rebar splice shift option, rebar splice by rules run out position, rebar splice error, rebar splice by rules error, and rebar handle behavior. So all these added capabilities for parametric splicing for typical rebar. There is new functionality for wall APIs. The new methods now allow users to selectively enable or disable end wrapping for a specific wall, and when the wall's end wrap is activated in the wall type dialog. Wrapping locations, if you can imagine that in plan view, each wall could have wrapping at the ends and also in every insert on the wall. So basically it can be arbitrary number of wrapping locations. So therefore, we now have new methods: get wrapping location as references, get wrapping location as curve parameter, get valid wrapping location indices, allow wrapping at location, disallow wrapping at location, and is wrapping at location allowed. That's how it looks in Canvas. Again, it's new functionality. Basically, when wall is selected, specific controls are displayed at every wrapping location that can be individually clicked to enable or disable wrapping at location if we are doing this through UI, and correspondingly, there is API to do exactly the same. There are structure API additions for analytical elements and analytical surface. The new methods is valid transform and set transform, and new method is outer contour valid. This is mostly for consistency with structural analysis software for interoperability. So we can now specify local coordinate system orientation for analytical panels and members. There are more structure API additions for bending details on drawings. We added new functionality for enhancing bending details. There are new methods to add, get, remove hosts, to get, set, tag relative position, to new methods on the rebar bending detail is schematic bending detail, is realistic bending detail, methods to reset tag relative position, and to reset annotation positions. There are also new properties of rebar bending detail type: schematic height, schematic width, tag type ID, display mode, and new enum bending detail display mode. That's how the schematic bar bending details look in Canvas. And these details are available for rebar tagging. Again, they could be created through UI and through the newly added API. There are also additions to tag and keynotes API. We now provide functionality to align multiple text, tags, and keynotes. There is new class annotation multiple alignment utils that contains all the relevant methods. Element supports multi-align, get annotation outline without leaders, and move with anchored leaders. So basically, this new functionality allows to easily align multiple tags, multiple text nodes, or multiple keynotes. That's how it looks in Canvas. So let's say that we have this picture on the left where multiple annotations are not aligned. All of them can be selected and with new tools easily aligned for better drawing representation. There is a lot of new functionality and API for Toposolid. We added functionality for Toposolid smooth shading. There are new methods: excavated by, remove excavation by, can be excavated by, set smooth surface, is smooth surface enabled, get intersecting element data, and set contour center. That's how it looks in the UI. So it is possible to enable Toposolid smooth shading, and it displays Toposolid elements in the model with smooth surfaces. Excavation on Toposolid can be specified as well, both UI and API. Users could simply choose the floor or building pad or roof or Toposolid as cutter elements to cut the host Toposolid. More than that, in section, we can shape edit slab elements to modify the cutting. There are also new methods to change contour settings. For the contour setting is item enabled. For contour setting item, get contour setting item type. And for the face Toposolid to create and update the face, which allows users to reset the face Toposolid to its defining face. And get reference faces and set reference faces for face Toposolid. That's how the contour line display responds to the visibility graphics dialog control and the contour setting from Toposolid types. There are also new classes intersecting element data and face Toposolid, and two new enums, intersection types and contour setting item type, which could be single, unbounded range, and bounded range. Also new properties of intersecting element data, intersection type, intersecting element ID, intersected element ID, and intersection volume. This shows how it is possible to model by face Toposolid in UI. Users could now create a mesh solid and use model by face Toposolid to select the face and create Toposolid. Some additions to UI API. It is now possible programmatically to create context menu from within. The new interface, context menu creator, users need to implement to build the context menu. There are new constructors for context menu item, for submenu item, and for the separator. New methods, context menu add item, command menu item set availability class name, which allows users to set availability class name of command menu item. Set tooltip allows to create tooltip for a specific menu item. Build context menu allows users to add menu items to the passed in context menu object. And register context menu adds new context menu creators with application name. For the UI application, we have new enum theme type. It could be canvas theme, indicates that the theme changed event is triggered by canvas theme change, and UI theme indicates that theme changed event is triggered by the global UI theme change. The new read-only property for theme changed event arguments, theme change type, returns theme type enum that indicates the kind of change triggered that triggered the current event. Additions to View API. There is now possible to create a sheet collection. Sheet collection is just the union of some sheets that can help you to separate groups of sheets. It does not create new instances of the drawing sheet itself. It just allows you to display better in project browser using browser organization and for different sorting and printing purposes. So new class sheet collection represents a sheet collection in Autodesk Revit. There are new methods to create it, and there is new property view sheet collection ID. The ID of the sheet collection that this sheet is associated with. So as you can see on the right-hand side, on the right-click menu in UI, it is possible to create new sheet collection, and then project browser could be grouped by sheet collections. So we have an example, submission 01, submission 02 as two different sheet collections here. And rules for sheets have not changed. Each sheet still only exists in one location, either inside a specific sheet collection or directly in the model. And by the way, it's good to notice that view list schedules now include the sheet collection parameter as well. Link visibility graphic override API additions. As you might know, there are three flavors of visibility graphic overrides for the linked files. We can have the visibility and graphic override settings by host view, by linked view, and custom. And all of them were available in UI for quite some time. Unfortunately, custom settings were not open in API yet, but we now improve this, and the new functionality allows Revit link visibility graphic overrides for the custom option to be set programmatically. There are new methods in the class Revit link graphic settings. Is view range supported? Get phase ID, set phase, get phase type, set phase filter ID, set phase filter type, and set phase filter with two arguments. There are more new methods, basically to get view detail level, to get view detail level type, set view detail level, get discipline type, and set discipline. New properties in Revit link graphic settings: view filter type, view range, color fill, object styles, and nested links. There are also additions to Revit Server Enterprise and Revit Cloud Worksharing API. The following events have been supported for file-based worksharing since 2021. We now support them in Revit Server Enterprise and Revit Cloud Worksharing. Document reloading latest. Subscribe to this event to be notified when Revit is just about to reload latest changes from a central model. And document reloaded latest. Subscribe to this event to be notified immediately after Revit has finished reloading a document with central model. And that is all. I understand it's a lot of material here. You probably can review the slide deck to get more details. And thank you for listening to this webinar. And that's all we had for you today.